I think we can begin now. So hello and welcome to our series on confronting racism, discrimination, and othering, perspectives from around the world. I'm Dr. Maria Nardone, Director of Technology and Global Learning at the William Alanson White Institute of Psychoanalysis, Psychiatry, and Psychology. I would like to extend a special welcome to our participants who are joining from several countries around the globe. In addition to participants from the states across the US, we have guests today from Canada, Japan, Cyprus, South Korea, Ukraine, and Bulgaria. To all of you, welcome. Thanks to all who included questions for our speakers when you registered. If you would like to add questions for our speakers today, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will try to address as many questions as possible. Today, as we begin the third year of our series, we turn our attention to the plight of migrants and refugees. Dr. Essam Daod, who is the leading advocate for the mental health support for migrants and refugees, is our guest speaker. Dr. Daod will be introduced by our moderator, Dr. Gurmeet Kanwal. Dr. Kanwal is Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medical College and Supervising Psychoanalyst at the William Alanson White Institute. He is past president of the Psychoanalytic Society of the William Alanson White Institute and an editorial board member and fellow of the College of the International Journal of Psychoanalysis and editorial board member, Psychoanalytic Discourse. Dr. Kanwal is co-editor with Salman Akhtar of the books Bereavement, Personal Experiences and Clinical Reflections by Karnak and Intimacy, Clinical, Cultural, Digital, and Developmental Perspectives, Routledge, 2019. His papers have been published in Contemporary Psychoanalysis, Neuropsychoanalysis, Psychoanalytic Review, and Psychoanalysis, Culture, and Society. In addition to teaching in the US, he has lectured on psychoanalysis in India and Iran. Now over to you, Dr. Kanwal, to introduce Dr. Daod.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you. So, for those of you who might have been following this series over the last year and a half, you know that we have covered many different areas of the world in the hope of creating a kind of awareness of community and bringing voices to the front that usually are really difficult to be heard or easily ignored. Today, we are going to focus on the refugee crisis, particularly as it is taking place and has been taking place in Greece, where many of these refugees land. And in some ways, this is a particularly moving topic because so many of those involved are children. Now, it is, of course, a sad thing that in spite of, all of us going through this horrendous pandemic, which we are still living through, somehow it seems that it is very difficult for us to learn that we are really one world. I can't imagine what else could have happened to bring that awareness to us. But nevertheless, we continue to wage wars, we continue to displace people, we continue to, have conflicts that are resulting in millions of people having to leave their homes. So I think it's very important that we are able to talk about this today. According to UNHCR, there are more than 21 million refugees in the world today. And if we include those under the care of UNRWA, the agency that was created in 1949 to take care of Palestinian refugees, the number goes up to something like 26 million. And what is startling about the statistic is that 40% or more of these refugees are children. And I also want to just say that when we talk about refugees, we should be aware that it is a particular category defined in a particular way, which is different from talking about migrants or talking about displaced people who can be displaced either internally or externally, or talking about immigrants. Refugees are defined as a group of people who either will not or cannot return to their countries because of fear of persecution of all different sorts. So we have an amazing person here today to talk about this. Dr. Essam Daod has been working with refugees in Greece since 2015. Dr. Daod is a trained psychiatrist and psychotherapist, and he provides emergency mental health interventions to displaced children and their families so they can transform their trauma into a source of growth. He grew up in Israel in a small Arab Palestinian village in Galilee. And in 2015, he flew to Greece for what became a humanitarian rescue mission, where he ended up co-founding an organization called Humanity Crew. And he has been working with refugees there ever since. Currently, he is an avid refugee mental health practitioner, researcher, and activist. He has spoken at countless conferences and media outlets worldwide, advocating for the importance of mental health support for child refugees and people in crisis. In 2018, he became a TED Fellow and a WHO mental health expert team member. In 2021, his work was featured in the docu-series titled The Me You Can't See, and I highly recommend for those of you who may not have seen it to watch this series, which was produced by Oprah Winfrey and Prince Harry for Apple TV. Now, this is a very, very short bio for someone who has done an amazing amount of work. So, Dr. Daod, maybe we can start by learning a little bit more about you, because I think the bio you've sent us is a little bit overly humble. But tell us, so I'm curious, like, how did you get to become involved with the refugee crisis in Greece? What happened in 2015? Of course, I can imagine that you had familiarity, growing up where you did with a lot of these kinds of issues, but how Greece and why Greece, and how did you come to start Humanity Crew?
Oh, thank you for your kind words, and good evening, good morning to everyone. Depends where you are in the globe. Being a Palestinian means that you just mentioned this, that we have our own refugee agency, the whole world and has the UNHCR, and the Palestinians we has the UNRWA. Half of my mom's side is displaced. It's part of my narrative. And actually going to Greece in 2015 it was almost half trip, I think, a vacation that get complicated. I don't know how to call it. I never thought that this is what I will be doing most of my life. And I don't know. I don't think I mentioned this in my bio, but I used to be a surgeon first before for a lot of years. I finished medical school in my 20s, and I started practicing surgery, trauma, plastic surgery. I was, switching between the fields of surgery until one day I say, no, it's not for me. And I decided to go for psychiatry. I think it's weird for most of the people. And at the beginning I was like, oh God, what I did to myself. I just burned like 3, 4, 5 years of my career for doing nothing. Even when I did my residency, there was no overlap between the departments or the program of my residency. Sometimes if you switch from neurology to psychiatry or something, you have like 1 year overlap or something. But I tried to find something, but I couldn't. But at the end, I think that the best thing that made me what I am in this field is actually my practicing surgery for 4 or 5 years, and the ER and the trauma room, because I took a lot of things from the understanding of the body and working in emergencies to the field of psychiatry and mental health. Because unfortunately, we as a mental health professionals, we don't put a focus on emergency mental health. We are talking like if we come to make an intervention 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, it's we say it's an emergency, or yeah, we did it. But we are not there in this field, and we are not in the crisis zones. We are not in the rescue operations. And I can understand why, because the nature of our work, the commitment to our patients. Like when I used to be in surgery, I used to go with my boss, for a 1 week trip to Gaza or to Africa, do like 1,000 surgeries in 1 week and go back, and that's it. We can't do it. Our intervention should be long, and also we can't leave our clinics and work. So Greece was a mix between, I go there as a tourist, as a previous surgeon, and a resident in the middle of my residency as a child and an adolescent psychiatrist, and boom, the first boat came. And it took me a while until I, arranged this puzzle. First I played, I came as a tourist, so I was playing the role of a tourist. But then when the boat came, I was for more than 1, 2, even 3 months. I can say that I used to be a surgeon there. I forgot the aspect of mental health of the people until I wake up one day, and then I start practicing what I'm doing now, and what the real shift happened from the field of surgery to the field of psychiatry. It's actually happened there.
But doctors are not particularly known for their organizational skills or community organizing and so on, and especially psychiatrists. You ended up organizing an amazing organization, Humanity Crew. How did that come to you, and how did you create this organization?
Like any other Arab man, my wife did everything. Let's be true, I am my partner in life, and my wife, she's a brilliant human being. The trip to Greece was after she went back from the States. She did her master's degree in George Washington in law. She studied law here in Haifa, and then she did her master in the US. And she just come back from her studies. I didn't see her for like almost 2 years, and the situation here in Israel and Palestine was a lot of tense at that time, 2015. And we say, okay, let's go for like a trip together, and then everything happened. So when we decided to establish it, we actually worked together there. Separately, we didn't really see each other at the end in our vacation. But when we went back, she wasn't between jobs and, you know, just finished her school. So she said, okay, I will be running everything. And she's still doing this. Like, if I all the time, people say to me, yo, you sacrifice a lot, and you know, you are a hero. Oh God, what you did. I say, no, like, I benefit from this more than any refugee. I actually gave him something, you know. I'm doing this lecture today not because I'm a brilliant psychiatrist, or I did something, or I wrote an article, or no, it's, you know, just because of my work there. I learn a lot. You know, Oprah Winfrey did the movie about us, or, you know, the Pope want to meet us, or it's just because of the work I'm doing with the refugees. But I actually make me sort of a little bit known here and there. So I have more people coming to my clinic, and I can ask for more money for my lectures, or you know, let's be honest, the one who sacrificed everything is my wife, because she's the lawyer. She did a very prestige master degree in George Washington, and she ended up for almost 2-3 years working in an NGO, and, you know, no one recognized, doing all the hard work, and her husband's taking all the, you know, the footages and the front pages, and she kept doing this day by day, and she never complained. So I actually I'm you know, the relationship between us in this project, we all the time say that I'm the crazy guy who can jump from any cliff, and she's the one that will do that calculation so I can land on my foot. Yeah, so it's my wife, not me.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, the probably the closest image I have of what it might be like for the refugees that cross, you know, the seas and get to the shores of Greece, I think is from having watched the movie The Swimmers, that documented the flight of the Medina sisters.
Yeah.
I imagine most of us.
Yeah, they actually came to the same island where we work in the
Right.
same. We met. We met. They came to the same share line with the same boats, and the same time we worked there.
Right. So most of us, I don't think, really have, you know, an idea of what that whole journey and what that arrival is like. So I wonder if you could tell us, like, what is it like to see these people arriving? What sort of state of mind? You've referred to the state of mind of being a refugee. What is that state of mind? What did you encounter? You know, what are some of the highlights in terms of the mental state, and what they then have to go through once they even get there, if they get there?
The thing is that, you know, a lot of unfortunately, I'm not succeeding to publish any article because I'm not someone who can write an article. You know, I'm someone who works in the field, but a lot of my ideas that I share in platforms like this, and, you know, I open almost all big conferences, you know, but it was all the time like this, like conversations or what I saw there, and everyone after the talks come to me and say, God, it's a great idea, we never thought about it. And the thing is, it wasn't because, again, you know, I'm that brilliant or clever or something. It's just because I was there. And I was there as a human being first, but second and most important thing, as a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
And you observe, because, you know, I'm sure that you have hundreds of hours and knowledge more than me, and you are a better psychiatrist than me, and I'm still young and think, but you have no chance to understand anything from this better than me, because I was there.
Mhm.
And when I was working with big names around the world in this field who write articles, and they did for the IRC or MSF or these big organizations, they wrote, you know, the guidelines. And also when I work with the WHO, it was amazing for me how, like, what you're doing. Like, sorry, I know that I'm young. I know that you are a big name in the field, but sir, what you were just saying now is you know, like, it's worth nothing. You are actually doing harm to the people. And once, without mentioning names, as we say here, I just asked a professor that came here to Jerusalem, I remember, to do a workshop in a very prestige like institute, and I asked him, after he just keeps saying things that it didn't really make sense to me, and I say, hey, professor, just, you know, I think I still were in my residency. It was in 2017. I didn't finish my residency even. I didn't become a specialist yet. And I asked him, so have you been in a refugee camp once, or did you see the boats? And he say, yeah, sure. I have been 5 days in a refugee camps in Jordan, in Lebanon. And I say, God, like, he is responsible for like maybe 20% of the service and mental health services provided displaced population, because he's working for a big NGO, and he have been there for 5 days only. So the thing is, you need to be there to understand it. Even, you know, the swimmers, even in watching movies or docu-series, is nothing can compare to be in the middle of nowhere, where you know that as a physician, as a human being, you know, as a psychiatrist, a previous surgeon, when you stand at 4 o'clock in the morning on a shoreline where you know that the closest hospital to you is 70 kilometers, and this hospital can't even provide liver enzyme test. You need to send it to Athens, and they have only 7 beds in the ER, and they don't have a pediatric intensive care unit, and this hospital is already overcrowded, and it's also served the whole population of the island, and every day around 5,000 to 8,000 people arrive to this island. So, and you know that when we used to call the ambulance said, is the person dead? Yes, so we're not picking the dead body, leave it, because we need to be for someone else. So if he is not stable until we arrive 2 hours, he will not be with us. So they usually don't answer the phone because they were overcrowded. So when you work there and you wait and you saw, you know, and the boat just arrived, you know, once I used to say that it was very, it makes me, maybe it will be weird for you, but it is like, it's like giving birth. Like I saw, now I have 2 babies, so I saw my wife giving 2 births. But when I was a student, I saw only 1. And it was the same that time, because you wait there, it's a lot of fear, and you have a lot of hope in one hand. It's dark, and you don't know when the boat will come, because it's a total dark. It's not like, you know, you are in the middle of nowhere, and then boom, in one moment you just see the boat when it's already hit you, and you have this screaming of people and children. They scream, and then everyone calm and everyone happy. So it makes me feel like it's like giving, you know, when you need someone, a lady deliver a baby, and each birth comes with, you know, complications, sometimes with a lot of sorrow, with loss. Sometimes you lose your baby, sometimes the baby is not healthy, sometimes he's shining and smiling, and it depends on the situation. unfortunately, in Greece, especially at that time, when the crisis started around 2015, 16, 17, we lost a lot. And there was a lot of suffering. The people were, it was just for them, they didn't even understand what they did, when they crossed the sea, because, they were in some kind of, they were like an automat. It was like a fight or flight system. Like even when they arrive, you try to talk with them, they are not, they wasn't like, they were not with us. And at that moment, I remember from my first mission, like in the first month I was there, I saw this as a success. Like I succeed. Oh, perfect. The people are alive. They continue walking and etc. And I never thought about what that means, that they are leaving their trauma behind, that they are leaving this scene without any processing what happened. They didn't celebrate their they didn't celebrate their success. They didn't, nothing. They were just traumatized, and they continue in the walking. And then you understand that you are just one station. They left Aleppo, they had to fight ISIS, the regime, and smuggling all around Syria until they reach the border with Turkey. Then they have to smuggle inside Turkey with the help with the Kurd smugglers, and then they have to all the way in Turkey to go down to Izmir area, and then they have to make the deal with the devil, who the cruel smugglers that will help them cross the sea. And then they cross the sea, they arrive to Greece, and then they have, they arrive in one island. Now they have 1 hour flight. They don't have a flight, so they have they are not really arriving to Greece. It's just a small island. The island is like 5 kilometers, sometimes 12 kilometers, 10 miles from Turkey, but it is a 1 hour flight from Athens. So then they have to move to Athens and walk all the way to the north of Greece to cross the border or Macedonia, go to Serbia, Hungary, and then to take the train, and then to arrive to, Germany or Denmark or Netherlands. So you are just in the middle of one of the stations. And when you look at this as a surgeon, at the beginning, it was fine. I make him overcome, let's say, the most dangerous part of his journey. But then when I start contacting people that, on the way, and meet them in different parts of their journey, I start realizing the importance of actually, it's not just a body or a car that making this, it's not an auto-drive Tesla that just drive from Syria to Germany. It's actually a human beings who has a lot of traumas all over the way and need the support. So the boat, you will never ever understand what you feel until you are there. And even when you are there, because this is huge amount, you will be like overwhelmed all the time. It takes you times until you understand. You do all the mistakes. You forgot, all the, the basics of being a mental health professional. You promise people, you give people money, you disappoint people. It takes you time until you understand how you need to, to protect yourself and to work in a way that, first, to protect yourself so you can really deliver a help that the people needs. I will show you a video, if possible, for like two minutes.
Please.
I still think that this is the best video that really can capture the things that we saw there. It's from my work in Greece for the AFP.
the Greek island of Lesbos on the front line of a wave of immigration that has overwhelmed Europe. As the boats continue to arrive, exhausted volunteers work around the clock. But sometimes it's not enough.
This is me during the, all of this is a live jacket.
In the past month, more than 80 people have died in Greek waters, many of them children.
It's not easy because the purpose of coming here was to save life, and when you lost and we don't save the lives, you feel guilty, you have nightmares.
Nearly all of the 218,000 migrants and refugees who crossed the Mediterranean to Greece in October landed here on Lesbos, an island of just 80,000 people. And with winter weather on its way, the journey across the Aegean from Turkey is becoming even more dangerous. Volunteers say larger aid and international organisations have been conspicuously absent. Keeping vital supplies going is a daily struggle.
I saw it on the news how people were just dying here. There were no people here that looked for them. And now I'm happy that I can be a light here in the dark for those people.
I do everything, but my specialty is preparing tea. I dress babies, fix sandwiches, give out water, collect garbage.
Spanish jet skis help the Greek Coast Guard to keep up the rescue effort. There are some remarkable stories of survival, of babies plucked from the sea. But bodies continue to wash up on the shore.
Yeah, so this is a daily, this is I don't know, it's like listen a day there. And that time, now the numbers is less, but still the same, it moved locations. But for example, in mid-October 2015 until mid-November 2015, this is the first time I was there, we received 250,000 people arrive to this shoreline you just saw in the pictures, in the videos, which is less than 10 miles. 250,000 of human beings arrive day by day. And you stand there by your own. I almost was the only doctor there. And you ask, where is where is the United States that protect the freedom? Where is the European Union? Where is it? Why no one is here? And then you understand this is bigger than us. You understand the politics, you understand how this is something that is out of our control. The photojournalist and a lot of journalists were there, like really Ivy Leagues that works with best agencies around the world, and they are really good people. They are amazing. And I remember, our talk with them. We used to sit at night and talk in the tavern, there's nothing to do there. And we become like a family until these days. And I remember when they start telling us, welcome to the world. You're still young, dude. This is how it works. You saw that we take footages, we send, but there is an editor-in-chief, and this is how it works. The picture of the kid Alayan, if you remember, that was in the beach, that I collect, sorry for that, more than 10 like this. I confirmed death to almost, I think in one night, that 20 children that were in Frontex, that's the European Union Coast Guard ship boat. No one talks about it. So then you understand that things didn't really, when you were in medical school, you want to work with Doctor Without Borders, you want to save the world, and then you say, oh, where is Doctor Without Borders? Why not they're here? So because they are an organization, they need to allocate funds until they receive the funds, and etc. So they arrive in December. Until then, they send 1, 2, 3 crew member. And you say, God, all we need is just a speedboat, and that's it. And this is what happened that time, because there was a group of lifeguards from Catalonia in Barcelona. They came to help in that time, and after the swimming season was off in Barcelona in September, and they saw the situation and they understand that there's no one is going to help and etc. So they drive they rent a car and they drive it until Barcelona, and then bring the 2 speed boats and etc. from until everyone came. In one hand, it makes you feel sad, angry at the beginning, because you understand, how come you have the Palestinian cause for 70 years and other issues around the world, because it's something that actually controlled by above. I'm not talking about conspiracy and stuff, but, there is something, for me, I was there, 250,000 came, a lot of people died. All of this can be, stopped if someone wants that, and it didn't happen. So I don't know why for me. So at the time when we created Humanity Crew, there is two stories that I think shaped me as a human being, but also shaped me as a psychiatrist, as a mental health professionals, and really we can say that the moving from surgery to psychiatry, I think it started with the first story and end up with the second one. The first one, I remember when I drive my Jeep to the camp area in the island of Lesbos to see my wife. I have a problem with the Jeep, so I have to fix it. Me and Maria, we split, because Maria said, I have nothing to do in the shoreline. I'm not a doctor, not a rescuer, and both. So I will stay here in the hospital and the transit camp area, so I can translate to people. From this decision, you can understand how really beautiful soul this woman is, because everyone wants to be in the boat area, where's the pictures, where you feel like a hero. And I try once to even write an article about the Superman syndrome. Everyone there was a Superman, and then you say, God, like, if you are really true Superman, just swim to the Turkish side, take the baby and come here. Don't take it from his mom when she's already arrived. Like, give me the babies. I said, stop taking babies from their mom. They just arrive. Like, everyone, there's like a lot of things happening there. But anyway, I was one of them. So I remember I drive the Jeep and I go to fix it. And it was, I think, a day after this a video you just saw. And I was, as you see, I was crying a lot. I have nightmares. I was like seeing people, and really like all symptoms of acute stress reaction disorder. I had it, and a severe one. And I couldn't have enough sleep. So I went there to the camp and I saw Maria for the first time after 1 month. And I actually was affected by the Superman syndrome, because I used to have my wind stopper, but is not waterproof, which is black, as you see. I had my stethoscope that wasn't working from day one because it was full of water. And I have my running shoes, hiking shoes, and my running pants, where both are not waterproof. But this was the most comfortable thing that I can wear there. And the thing is that it was all the time cold because it wasn't waterproof, and it was fake. It was a fake shield, I think. And when I arrived there, I remember like going like this to the camp with Maria, and she said, hey, come with me. I have to go to see someone. I say, come on, like, love, let's stop. I just want to talk to you. Say, no, I have things to do. And really the attitude was, what kind of work you are doing? The Essam, the surgeon, talking with Maria, the psychologist, something like this. Like, it's not important to talk. Like, I'm saving lives, dear. I need you now. And somehow, and I remember she said, come, I want to introduce you to my friends here in the camp, and we'll continue later the talk. And I want her, because I want to tell her that we need to go back home, because I was really tired and nightmares, and I to have some rest. And she said, no, like, I want to stay here. you decide to go to the beach and work there. So while we were talking, she said, okay, come and meet my friend. So I just follow her, and we went after, like, behind a camping tent. It was still, the camping tents and stuff like that. And there was a man and a woman. And I remember when I entered, when we approached them, the woman just stand up and she she came to Maria and started hitting Maria. Really, it's like hitting him badly. And she started crying, where you have been? I'm waiting for you 2 days. You can come for a visit. You are not a friend. And Maria was like standing still, and she was like hitting her, and she was fine with this. And I was like, what? Like, why? And the man, he started telling me in Arabic, sit down, drink coffee. And I was like looking to him like, what coffee, dude? Like, you are nowhere. And do you want a cigarette? Do you want coffee? And I say, no, sorry, sir. No, thank you. And then Maria looked at me and she said in Hebrew, this is the language we use when we don't want people to understand us, like, and she said, like, respect the man home and sit down and drink a coffee. He's like 10 times inviting you to drink a coffee. And for a woman, it was the first thing, like, when you have this kind of insight, like, okay, sit down. He did a coffee with a cucumber can, and he gave me a cigarette. I used to smoke at that time. And I started smoking, drinking a coffee with him, and Maria started talking with the woman. And from the conversation, I understand that they have a big shipwreck 2 weeks before we arrived to the island. It was in September, and she lost 2 children. And she was busy with blaming, like, part of her bereavement, for sure, and grief, blaming her husband that he didn't succeed to rescue the kids. And it was like seeing a movie and someone just doing an interpretation to you, because the man was saying, what I can do. I was diving, finding someone, take him up, is not my kid. Going down, finding someone, go up, is not my kid. What I did, like, I did all I can. And I was like, what the hell is happening here? And then I just took a look, like, to the left, and was smoking like this, and I saw a baby girl playing in the grass. And I asked, who is this? And they said, this is our only daughter that the father succeed to rescue. And I say, who's taking care of her? Like, she was like looking at me as she was begging me, like, do something, like, end all of this. Like, I don't know what's happening. And I remember that we stand up, and Maria says sorry to her that she was busy with other cases, and she promised her that she will come more and stuff. And while we were walking away from their tent, I told Maria that I totally understand how important her work is, but I still need her to come back with me, because I can't handle it, especially after what I witnessed. And I told her that I promised her, if we go back now and she helps me recover, I promise her that we will do something big, and we will come here and we will stay here and stuff like this. So she said, I'm coming back only because, you asked me, but you should know that I'm so angry that I'm coming back. And we went back home, and for a whole week, she didn't talk to me. When I'm saying she didn't talk to me, she didn't talk to me. Like, in the airport, when we arrived home, nothing. She was angry. Nothing. Like, there is no coffee, nothing. I tried. I landed. I go directly to my psychoanalytic school, because I already missed 2 weeks, and they are very you miss the school, you can't you have. So I went there, I entered we have this group after the lectures, like, all together. I smashed the group. It's like the whole years after that, the group was dealing with what I bring. Like, it was, I bring all the trauma, I'll put it there in this group. They become, really, I smashed all of them. And the whole 3-4 years after that, we tried just to rebuild the group. And I, until now, I say this is actually one of things that makes me like survive this kind of group. And I used to travel because they say that you can't miss any classes yet. So I used to travel like Thursday morning and come back in Wednesday mornings that the week after, so I can go to school. Then I was doing this for the whole 3-4 years. And a lot of time I was telling myself why I did this. Like, come on, like who needs it? Like, you know, I'm doing something more. But something kept in myself, like going in Thursday, coming back in Wednesday to school, even when I, you know, it's, you know, I have to cross the sea with an airplane. So, and the whole week, then Maria didn't talk to me. And I tried to go back to work. They give me a week off. Everyone knows that I'm not okay. So my friends came to our house and they took us to drink coffee out for the first time. And while we are there, I start recovering in somehow. And I, you know, as all surgeon, when you lose someone in a surgery room, you actually start talking about your successful surgeries that you did in the past. Immediately, like this is what we did. You lost someone, minute after you start talking, yeah, when I did the laparotomy last, immediately. And this is what I used to do. I start talking in the coffee shops about all the successful CPRs and how I did this, and the big shipwreck in the 20th of October, and the successful 21 CPRs, and this is. And then that time there was an editorial in the New York Times about the big shipwreck that happened in 28th of October 2015. There was a big shipwreck that time, and around 200 people lost their lives during the time we were there. And the head of the emergency response team, something in the Human Rights Foundation, his name is Peter Pockart. He succeeded to write an opinion article, something like this, for the New York Times. And it was based on a lot of my testimonies, how there was no rescue operation, no one came, how we did the CPRs, and etc. So, and I was showing them the article and the picture, and there was a kid, one of the Spanish lifeguards, I talk about them, they held a dead body, and I say, yeah, did you see it? I took him, this is my hand, and I did CPRs, and he was alive, and etc. And give him back his life and stuff. And the thing is that Maria just take a look like this, closer to the table, and she said, oh, this is Ahmed. And I say, and everyone at the table, and including me, say, who, Ahmed? Because this was like the first time ever, I'm not kidding, for me, there was a name for these people. And very sad. And the second thing, even for my friends who was listening to heroic stories, this is the first time that it's not about me, the surgeon, it's not about the rescuers, it's not about the NGOs, it's not about the Greek people who are helping, or Germany, or the big heart of the European. It was about Ahmed. This kid has a name. And she said, Ahmed arrived to the hospital in the night of the 28th of October after the big shipwreck. And after a successful CPR, and I immediately jump and say, yes, I did it. I did the successful CPR. And Maria said to me, honey, you did all the successful one and the unsuccessful one. So if you translate this, it just shut your mouth somehow. And she said that this kid came to the ER. He was stable, and like I did a good job, but he was not moving at all, nothing. And he stayed at the pediatric department for 3 days as a piece of wood. You know, now I realized, after that, I realized it's like a catatonic state, maybe. They had to close his eyes to put like eye drops. They put a needle in his arm. He didn't move. Nothing. He didn't eat. They put him a catheter to urine. Nothing. And Maria, she's a lawyer. She has a first degree in psychology, but she's a lawyer. She's not a therapist. And she started visiting him every day as part of her. She used to make like a tour in all hospitals to bring him food. Hey, you want to eat, honey? She talks with him Arabic, hug him, and that's it. And she was telling us this story, and she said that the third day, something like this, she came in the morning, she bring him food, she was talking with him, and he started moving. And he held her hand, and she was like more or less like communicating. And then he sat on his bed, went down, and took Maria by hand, and he was like pushing her, like come and somehow. He go to the glass door of the department, he put his hand and he said in Arabic, أنا بدي أروح البيت. I want to go home. This was like his first 3 words. And when Maria just said this, I start crying like almost now, because it was really, it is, we used to be in, it was the day I understand, or I can say, okay, I did it. I quit from surgery. I become a psychiatrist. This is the day I understand that they are not, auto drive Tesla cars or machines that moving. They are human beings. It's not about the rescuers. It's about the refugees. It's not about, the banana and the blanket and the shelter, which is important. It's about their mental health, about, a 5-year-old kid who lost his parents. He was in the sea for 5 hours. He flee a war zones. He saw smugglers, and he was dead and become alive after a successful CPR, which is perfect. But then he was in a bed in the middle of nowhere in Europe. No one speaks his language, and he don't know where he is. So if we as a mental health professionals will not take responsibility for this understanding of this, what happening to these children, displaced children, and be there for them, and not visiting them in the detention centers or in the camps, or when they will be relocated to Minnesota as a program of the why we exist, why we exist. So this is the time that we say, okay, we will do it differently. And then we establish a humanity crew, and that is, as you say, it's an organization that try to be there in the front lines and deploy mental health services to the front line in crisis zones, especially for kids, and to provide emergency mental health interventions for them.
That's just an amazing, heartbreaking story. And I know that a lot of what you have just described has a lot to do with vicarious trauma that you have experienced, and maybe we can get back to talking about how one, gets through that as well. But you've talked about something that you call the human devastation syndrome. What do you mean by that? What are
They
you
actually
to?
It's the same story of the articles. The human devastating syndrome, I didn't talk about it. I describe it. I think that you link between something you read about and what I just say. Yeah, someone else wrote about this, and they called it human devastating syndrome, something like this. But I think it's a catatonic state. Just because we didn't, catatonia is something for the last century, like 2 centuries, and we didn't see it now. But a lot of the, the mental health disorders and neuroses that really, we don't see it now. We saw it in camps and situations like this. A lot of conversions, a lot like conversions, somatizations, blindness, people who didn't see. Paralysis, psychogenic epilepsy, seizures, catatonic states. It's the majority of the things that we see we saw there after this situation. So they call the human devastating syndrome. I'm not against the term, but it's like when someone contact me from university around the world and want to do a research, and he comes to me and say, okay, I want to check if the mental health services are accessible to the refugees. I said, oh, okay, no, don't need, just write it, no. He said, no, we have to check this, I have a fund for this. And I say to him, like, but dude, it's no, like, do something that can really benefit the people. Like, no, let's try to do such. No, this want to search this. I want to search how. So it's the same like here. You give it a name. Okay, what else? Like, so yeah, it's important. I'm not saying no or something, but I don't think it makes a difference. I think it's a catatonic state in one hand. You want to call it catatonic, you want to call it devastating, so it doesn't matter. But this is how children will react to this amount of trauma. They can't handle it. It's the only solution for this is dead, or you just do this huge dissociative split that you just say, this is my body, do whatever you want. When you finish, let me know so I can come back. Because I can't handle it.
What about suicide? Do you have any numbers, statistics? What is the rate of suicide among this population and compared to other populations?
The thing is, you will be surprised. I think, I don't have data, but I don't think that it's a high percentage of suicide. Yes, there's a lot of suicide and self-harm and suicidal self-harm and suicide is total different thing, as you know. But let's say like this, the first time, like the first period when the acute trauma is happening, nothing happened, no self-harm, no suicide, nothing. People are in a because it's against the understanding of fight or flight. It's against of the survival mode that they are. We activate our fight or flight or because we want to survive. So how come you're gonna hurt yourself? It's actually hurting yourself, hurting the suicidal thoughts and etc. comes later, when they are more in more later steps inside the transit camps, when they are stuck somewhere, or there they start. But it's and it starts with self-harm. And we saw a lot of self-harm among teenagers as part of trying to ease the situation, to reconnect because of a lot of dissociative and somatizations. So they use it for this. But again, it's more for later stages. One of the observations I would love to share with you later, what we are trying to write. It's called the four stages, or four state of minds. And because especially for a question like this, because it's very important what kind of intervention you want to do, what kind of source services you need to bring to the field, because the common sense and what we know that there's a lot of suicide in situation like this, but it's not what really happening. And it's because we look at the displacement journey as as very simple thing. It's actually we look at this as a journey of the body, but it's not true. There's a psychological journey and there's a body journey. The physical journey, sometimes you are in Germany and sitting in a very nice house in Berlin, very successful, but your mind is still in Syria or in the sea or in Greece or in the way. And you can't look at this as two things or as a one thing or as a two things that go parallel. And that's why a lot of the resettlement programs are not successful. You know, in Germany, they don't understand how come we welcome you immediately. We open, like, give you everything. You live in Berlin. Everyone wants to live in Berlin. How come that you are not integrated? How come that you are not okay? Why you still have problems? Why? Because you are trying to make someone with a broken leg to run a marathon. Because you are trying to make someone resettled. His body is here, but his mind is in Syria. So, and that's why we came with this observation, or what we saw, that there is actually 4 different state of minds that the displaced refugee or displaced person will go through during his journey. And it doesn't have nothing to do with his, with his physical, location at that now. And not also for his how we call it, legal situation, because a lot of the time you say, you have papers, okay, so I will give you a psychologist, you can do the resettlement. Oh, you are trans, I can give you. But since when we provide the service upon the legal situation or the physical location, and that's why we saw that there is some kind of 4 stages or 4 state of minds. You have the acute trauma or the acute phase, when it can appear anytime, depends on the situations. When you have the fight or flight system, when you are in an automat, you actually can't do any kind of good decisions. There is no kind of treatment can be done there or intervention. It's not time to talk about the past or the futures. And most of the work that we do there is psychological first aid, or the work that can shut down the fight or flight system so that people can take the right decision. A lot of times, like at the beginning, people were arriving and they were helping them with food and money so they can continue their way. But I was saying to UNHCR, let's talk with the people first, because they are moving now. They have a lot of resources here, but in Serbia it's -20. It's freezing. We are in November. They will stuck there, and this is what's happening. We saw all these movies, in the news, the refugees who were freezed in the forest there, because there is no help there. So let's make the people take the right decision. No, they want that. I say, no, they don't want that. The state of mind, the survival mode is still running. He's an automat. And when we have this kind of interventions that shut down the fight or flight system, we help the people to calm down, think, and then they have they take the right decisions. They say, okay, there is a Western Union, so I can actually have money from my brother in Germany. Oh God, so I have money and I will take it. So they will find a lot of, there was a person, I remember after we finished the rescue, I was going away to see another boat, and he just called me and he said, I want to just thank you. I said, thank you, sir. And he was an old man, and it's 65, 60. And he said, the last thing I thought that I will see here, an Arab man helping me, I'm running from Arabs. And I say, oh, thank you. And he said, where are you from? I say, I'm from Haifa. I say, oh God, I born in Haifa, something like that. You remember, what in this? I say, yes, I'm from this neighborhood. He said, yeah, this is the Arab neighborhood in Haifa. And it becomes that he's a professor in economics. And he actually studied with one of the leading psychologists here in the Arab community in Haifa. They studied together their PhD in the same university in Bulgaria, in Sofia. And he knows him and he knows his family, and we were talking, and this kind of conversation just calmed him down, and we start talking about things and Haifa and etc. And he started asking me questions, and he took all the information. I told him that now he needs to walk for 6-7 hours to take then take the bus to the ferry, a ferry 12 hours, he need like 50 euro, then he need to go to Saloniki by bus, which is like 6 hours from Athens. And I told him all the way what he need to do is Germany. And he said, and I told him that he most probably will be now in Moria camp, which is bad, for like almost a week or two. And when he got all the information, I said, what? No, I can't do it. No, I don't think it's, how I can come back to Turkey? I say, no, sir, you just arrived at the border. They say, no, they don't tell me this. I was like, we were like, go. So we arrive here, but thank you for the information. I'm not young. No one gonna take me. I go back to Turkey. I can teach there or go back to Syria or something. And I say, sir, are you sure? Just think about it. Say, I will think about it in the camp, but thank you for this. And 1 week or 2 weeks later, his friend, the psychologist from Haifa, he texted me and he said, hey, Abu Yunus say to you, thank you for the good decision you helped him did. And I said, God, like, I received a thank you from someone who I'm making go back to Turkey, actually. So by collecting a lot of stories like this, we came to the understanding that there's different stages that the refugees go through, and then the intervention should be different. So we were less busy with, inventing the wheel, but it's actually understanding how this wheel is working. And we say, okay, crisis intervention is perfect. PFA is perfect. Do it here. CBT is not time for it. Do it later. Psychoanalysis, it's not the time. Psychotherapy. And this is how we actually start adopting each mechanism and techniques, which is working. And to say, okay, the first thing I want you as a psychologist or a mental health professional to do is to ask yourself in which state of mind this displaced person is. If he's in the first one, do this. If in the fourth, do the resettlement. And this is like
what is the second stage? You said this was the first stage, right?
The first one is the acute trauma. The second one is when you shut down the state, the fight or flight system. They have some kind of understanding, like, okay, where we are. So it's like, it's not stable. It's like, ooh, okay, where we are now. Okay, where did, like, Greece?
Like an orientation.
Yeah, because this is the prefrontal start coming to work and start asking questions. And for example, it was amazing. Do you know what's the most complain or that they used to come to us to talk about, like 3-4 days after the arriving to the Greece? It was shame and blame. And why? Because they used to come, especially young men. He said, I have a bad feeling. I say, what's the problem? He said, there was an old lady in the boat and I kick her and I step on her and I jump and I continue. And there is a kid who fell in the water and the mother was crying and the father was begging us to come back and collect him and to take him. But we decided the boat should go on and we left the kid in the sea. And I don't know how I decide to do this, and I'm a bad person. But this is exactly, and the work there, for example, because the prefrontals are coming up and they are coming from this collective well-being, and he come to understand that he used to be like in a sort of like an animal who want to survive. There was a lot of work with them to understand, like, it's okay, like, this is neuroscience, this is how we act in a situation like this. Anyone will act the same. I told them, if something will happen now, like that risk the life, I will also step on you and run away. And then I would say, oh God, what I did, and come back and help you. So don't feel guilty in a way that there's a lot of guilt in this. So a lot of things you understand.
So those are characteristics of stage 2, you're saying?
Yes,
that
yes.
You start to experience these feelings.
A lot of guilt, a lot of insecure, instability, because the state, when you activate your fight or flight system and you have all your blood, full with cortisol and adrenaline, you are protected. You know, physically you are protected. You don't feel pain and hunger and stuff. And also in a psychology way, you are safe because no prefrontal actually works, and you are just like an anchor. Like there is no compromise, there is no, you know, hey, let's be nice to the nothing. You just want to survive. So when it starts shutting down, they start like, and they are in a they are not here, like what's happening here now, like where we are, there is a lot of insecurity. So the second stage need to be very like grounding. We need to work on grounding, and we use, for example, a lot of smell, that we use the sense of smell, and it was by chance that we find out that it works. Bringing food, like we did thyme with olive oil once as a, you know, let's do some food, and I don't know, it was an intuitive, like we bring with us from Palestine like some thyme and olive oil, and we did like a pita bread with thyme and olive and sesame. Like it's a very traditional thing for the Levant here. And I remember that a man came, it was like he was arrived like a week before. He came like to the yard, and he sat on his in knees, and he started crying and hitting his head. And I didn't understand why. They call me, so I ran there. I say, "Hey, dude, what's the problem? Like, what happened?" He said, "What you are doing to me?" And he was like, it was clear for me that he is not angry. It was like between like extreme joy and like something. Now, and I say, he told me, for 3 years I didn't see my mom. I say, okay. He said, it's not only the war took my mom from me, it's also took the mental image of my mom, because each time I try to remember my mom, you know, I'm not talking about video chat or seeing in person. You know, you can close your eyes and you can imagine your mom. I can't, because each time I did this, I saw like a war thing, like that it was linked to this. And while I was in my tent, the smell of the thyme and the olive came slowly. And then I found myself imagining myself sitting next to my mom in the yard in our hometown, and she's like working and doing the thyme and the pita bread with the thyme and the olive, and I was there for her. So I want to thank you. Like, this is the first time I saw mom. It's like being next to my mom. And then we understand the powerful thing that we have with the smell and this grounding thing. So we used to say, okay, so let's use it with the coffee, with the Arabic coffees. They have a cardium, some kind of herbs. And because the woman groups, the support group that we used to do for grounding, for especially for the women and the men in the transit camp, didn't really work. People didn't come there. So we start making Arabic coffee in outside and putting this and the smell, and people start coming. We start drinking coffee together, and they say, okay, you want to go for a session now? And it was amazing because it just, you know, so this is what the second stage for. Yeah.
I mean, there is just unbelievable amount of knowledge and experience that, you know, you have from witnessing and working with these people. And it's amazing to me how fast the time is flying. And we've hardly started to talk, it seems like. But can you say something quickly about stage 3 and 4? And then I would love to get to a couple of other questions before we
sure.
end up.
So the stage 3, it's actually end with a decision. It starts with a decision, sorry. The second stage end with a decision and starts the third stage, because the second stage is like a fade out from your automatization of the fight or flight and the insecure. So when you shut down 100% your fight or flight system and you feel the ground, then you take a decision. And this is actually, it comes to us, the understanding that this is actually the first time refugees and displaced population take an active decision. Until then, they were, let's go, let's run away. So, and doesn't matter if they decide to go forward or to go back or to stay where they are in Greece, for example. But this decision means they are losing something, because until then they didn't understand. So when they say, I want to continue, then it means I'm not coming back. Until then, they were running. So this is like this understand. And then there is like a lot of some kind of, it's the first time they say goodbye and somehow. And the fourth stage is actually when they finish their journey of grief, let's say, about losing everything. And then it's the fear of the unknown, because in one hand you are very it's like I think it's this stage is very similar to immigrants. Let's say I want to make a relocation to the United States now. It's better for me as a psychiatrist, so I take all my family and go to the States. So it's the same stage, because at that time I am missing my family, my back, my traditions, and I fear what's going to happen with me. In one hand, I am very hopeful what's going to happen with me and happy, but I am sad. So it's a mixed feeling between things. And one of the biggest mistakes that happen in a situation like this for the host communities, that they start working against the people mentality, not through the people mentality. And then they say, oh, they are extremists. And like Syrians were never religious. I'm from this area. They are not have to do nothing with religion. They were, they are not extremists. There was nothing there. Actually, 99% of Daesh came from Europe. Like, they are not a religious people. Like, if you look at their movies and things, they are very open-minded, very educated. So what happened that you look at now at most of the Syrians in the West, they are like God. It's just because we're there between the past and the future, but the future wasn't so hopefully and welcoming. It actually attacked their mentality. They attacked their culture. They try to enforce the gender equality. It's perfect. All of us think that gender equality is the right thing, but not my dad. My dad is a farmer from a village and he's 75 years old. It takes me years until I help my little sister to take a house in the city next to him. My dad is better than all the feminists in the world. He is most respectful than all of them, but this is what he believes. This is how he is raised. So if I work against my dad understanding, then nothing will happen. But slowly, when you work through the people mentality and culture, you respect them, you make him understand the differences, then they will be able to listen and to change. You can't enforce, this is right for you, not for them. And the problem is the boom, and that's what creates people to make a lot of defense in someone.
Let me ask you something in a little bit of a different direction. Obviously, the groups that you are dealing with are not, exactly homogenous, I'm sure. They're people from different places and they have differences amongst themselves. And then they are in an environment from which they are different as well, right? So you're talking a lot about, the internal struggles and the trauma and so on. Could you say a couple of words about what happens in terms of, the prejudices, the racism, the way that these people are looked at in the Greek environment? We don't have a lot of time, but could you sort of give a little bit of a sense of how that plays out?
The thing is, as you are close to the trauma, where everything is happening, you actually saw a lot of kindness, a lot of kindness. And I was describing this all the time as, because that's why also we called our group Humanity Group. Everyone was saying, call it Palestine Aid or Pal Aid, as an Israel Aid or US. I say, no. there is something in that moment when the boat arrived that it's a human to human. You are like no shields, nothing, no culture, nothing. It's just two people, get together. It's like as in birth, nothing really happened there. And as you becoming more and more in the times go in, then the discrimination that you have it in the States and against the fat people, the skinny people, the black people, the white, you have it there also against women and against teenagers. But there is nothing more than anything else. The things that we saw last few years in Greece, it was because the Greek people were so tired, their life was ruined, so they were protecting themselves. It's actually the geopolitics and the whole big things around the world make the poor people of Greece to fight the poor refugees. They put them in the islands and they say, okay, now figure it out how you're going to do it together. So it's not about discrimination or something. I actually, I don't see it like this. I think they were very welcoming at the stage where they should be, and after that it become a lot of politics
like anywhere else. Right. It's good to know. Maria, I see you're here. Do you want to take over? You have questions? But just before you take over, thank you so much. It was just fascinating. You've brought to life, a place and people that we cannot otherwise even imagine. Thank you.
I'm afraid we just have a few minutes left, and I feel like we could go on for hours more. I mean, it's just riveting, and at the same time, overwhelming and very painful in many ways to listen to. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, for being here with us today and sharing your experiences. I would have loved to have heard even more about, your journey and how you manage, because as mental health professionals, so much, we struggle with how to take care of ourselves when dealing with traumatic people. And, I think about your journey back and forth to the Institute, and, as difficult as that was, it must have provided in a way an anchor, with one foot, back in sort of a more stable world, or your old world with, what you were dealing with in the traumatic world.
I think you describe it the best. I still remember myself saying, I just remember it now, that I used to say that time, the day that I will cancel something, like I will quit the psychology school, or I will not finish my residency, or I will not going to the family trip, or like things that I was supposed to do, this is the time that I understand that I am actually doing bad to myself. And I kept everything. Everyone was saying, how are you doing? I said, like, on the other hand, I think what makes things like I was taking care of myself because I had the chance and the luck to have good people around me. First, the people who were there at the beginning in Greece in 2015, in that crazy month, we become a real family. Second, my wife, definitely, and my community. Like, I remember it's crazy, but when the first money I got to run, it was from my community back in the hometown. I live in the Galilee. I remember when I go to my parents to visit them during Christmas, I'm from the Christian community there. We have a small, and I remember that they have this postcard for Christmas in 2015 that have all the activities from the church, and the picture was not of Jesus, it was me on the postcard. I said to my mom, what is it? Why am here? She said, this is the father, the priest decided. So you say, this is how, like, I say, no, like too much. And they collect all the money for the Christmas, they give it to me. So the family, the community, and the friends I had, the psychoanalytic school, the group, the work, to keep things normal as much as I can. And at the end, this is why also we saw that we want to transform trauma to a source of growth, because I remember I gave a speech about it in the Oslo Freedom Forum before, I think 1 year, physician heal thyself, I called it, because I remember my psychologist say to me, God, you are like all the time, blah, blah, like, you want to be post-traumatized all your life, or you want to grow from this? I say, what? She said, this is the problem with the field of medicine. You focus a lot on illness, but there's something called post-traumatic growth. Go and learn about it. I think that you are someone who can grow from situation like this. Stop like blaming everyone. And I went there and I say, God, yeah. And this is the time I decide, okay, let's grow from this. I all the time say, I still cry sometimes. I don't know when. It was really hard for me to be a dad. I kept saying, not now, because I couldn't see babies. So it takes time, but at the end, I think trauma is a overwhelmed, massive input that we hit by accidentally and without any kind of preparedness. And if you have the right resources inside, outside, around you, then you can transform this to huge things. So, and that's what I'm trying to do with the kids. I'm trying to be there for them so I can make their story different. And this is our hero project. Like when we take kids and we start telling them different narrative, and we help them become the hero who crossed the seas, and not the kid who was crying because everyone was vomiting in the book.
So thank you. I think that's a very beautiful note, an optimistic note to end this session on. And before I close the webinar, I do want to make two announcements. One is I hope that everyone will return on Saturday, February 4th, where we'll have a session with Professor Padraig Scanlon and Dr. Michelle Stevens. Our topic will be slavery and emancipation in the British Empire. And then also on February 6th at the William Allenson White Institute, we have a virtual open house for our psychoanalytic program. You're all welcome to attend. It is called Surviving, Hating, and Being Hated: Some Personal Thoughts About Racism from a Psychoanalytic Perspective. And the speakers will be Dr. Kathy White, Dr. Sherry Ann Cowie, and Dr. Anna Vitali. So thank you again for being here. Thank you again, Gurmeet and Dr. Daod. And wish you all.
Maria, sorry, I as always, I forgot. Support us. This is the organization that will get angry. Donate to us. Visit humanitarian.org. Share us in social media. If you have an uncle who is billionaire, ask him to donate, or you donate. Even recruiting donation for $5, $1. Really, it will be. We have a 501c in the US, so it's also tax things. So please support us. Share our story on the social media. It will bring a lot of attention to us. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Just want to repeat the name of your organization again?
HumanityCrew.org.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to everyone, this session is recorded and will be on the Institute's YouTube channel. So for your friends and colleagues who were unable to join us today, they can view the recording. So please spread the word. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.